Next lecture will be Dr. Azila on technical approach to lower extremity revascularization, available devices and clinical data.
Good evening, respected chairpersons, panelists, delegates. At the outset, I would like to thank Dr. Srinivasa Kumar for inviting me to stand in front of this august audience and talk on technical approach to lower limb revascularization, available devices and clinical data. How are we treating peripheral arterial disease? When the patient develops claudication, both the patient and the physician neglect it. When he develops ischemic ulcers, just cleaning and dressing of the wound is done. When it goes to gangrene, he is referred to surgeon for amputation. And what the surgeon does, initially he amputates one toe, then the next toe, then all the toes, then it is above ankle, below knee, above knee, and below hip. Fortunately for the patient, by the time he succumbs to the disease. And the other surgical way of treating peripheral vascular disease is amputation and bypass surgery. Amputation has 100% morbidity, and even mortality is very high. For below knee amputation, it is 5 to 10%. For above knee, it is 10 to 20%, and it is much costlier than bypass. The bypass, the surgeon can do a ioto-fem bypass or a ioto-bifemoral bypass, a femoropopliteal bypass, a fem-fem crossover, or even an axillary fem bypass surgeries. But these surgeries are extensive. There is a mortality of 0.5 to 2% in 30 days. There is a 1 to 2% graft infection, 5 to 8% major systemic complications, 10 to 30% wound complications like bleeding, hematoma, infection, cellulitis, and lymph leak. Thus, there is a need for an alternative method of treating, that is endovascular approach, where the morbidity and mortality may be a little less. Dr. Samir Dani has already explained to you the spectrum of peripheral arterial disease. We divide them into asymptomatic, atypical, claudication, chronic limb ischemia, critical limb ischemia, and acute limb ischemia. In patients with asymptomatic and atypical symptoms, even in mild to moderate claudication, we don't go for interventions. It is only in patients with severe claudication who have failed to respond to maximum medical therapy and patients with critical limb ischemia who are taken up for peripheral limb interventions. In acute limb ischemia also, you don't do PTA. You need other interventions like intra-arterial thrombolysis or thrombectomy, but you don't do a PTA during an acute limb ischemia. Before taking up the patient to the cath lab for peripheral intervention, he has to go through the non-invasive vascular lab, where an ankle brachial index or an exercise ankle brachial index or a toe brachial index is needed, segmental limb pressures, pulse volume recording, duplex ultrasonography, and either a CT or MRI angiography should be done before taking up the patient for intervention. If the patient is having critical limb ischemia, to assess the limb viability, you need other tests like capillary density, laser Doppler perfusion, and transcutaneous oxygen pressure. This will help us in taking a decision whether to send the patient for primary amputation or do an PTA and then see if needed go for a secondary amputation, or if the limb survives good. Like for example, if the capillary density is more than 20 millimeters square, that is reactive hyperemia, and the tissue oxygen pressure is more than 30 millimeters, it indicates a good microcirculation of the limb, and the chances of limb getting viable is more than 88%. Whereas if the capillary density is less than 20 millimeters square, absent reactive hyperemia, or the tissue oxygen pressure is less than 10, then the microcirculation is bad and chances of getting amputated are high. So coming to endovascular intervention, before going into endovascular intervention, one should know the anatomy of the lower limbs. The aorta divides into the two common iliacs, which are about 7 to 10 millimeter in diameter. Then the external iliac is 7 to 10. The femoral, which is about 30 centimeter long, is 6 to 8 millimeter in diameter. Your popliteal is around 3 to 5, and your anterior tibial, posterior tibial, and peroneal are 2 to 4 millimeters in diameter. Usually you need a 15-inch image intensifier for doing peripheral work, which gives a larger field. But with the 9-inch image intensifier which we have in the cath lab, you need to elevate the table height maximally, bring the image intensifier close to the patient, as much anatomy as possible. You should do a DSA for all arteries which are less than 5 millimeter. The patient should be deeply sedated when you are doing or other things which should be available while doing a peripheral intervention. In store fluoro, you do a DSA and then over this DSA image you fluoro, and you can use this arterial image to either make a puncture, get an access site, or even sometimes to cross the guide wires. Angiogram should be done in the following ways. You should take one injection with the pigtail catheter at T12 level so that you see the aorta from above the renals till the bifurcation. The other injection is done just above the bifurcation so that you can see the aortic bifurcation, the common iliac bifurcation, and the common femoral arterial bifurcation. And then 2 injections on either side in the SFA so that you see the entire limb runoff. Just like in coronaries, even in peripherals, you have particular views for particular segments of the arteries, and if you do it in that particular view, you will make out the lesions very well. This is, for example, if you see the common femoral artery bifurcation in the AP view, it looks normal, but whereas LA of 45-degree view, you can see a tight ostial stenosis of the profunda femoris artery. As Samir Dani had explained to you, the task classification by the Transatlantic Inter-Society of Consensus has divided lesions into type A, type B, type C, and type D. So after angiography, you should classify as to which class the patient belongs to. And then if he is in type A or type B, you take him up for PTA. If he is in type C or type D, you send him for surgery. And you can use the antegrade femoral artery also, especially for below the knee. One should be careful with the antegrade femoral approach, and it's better to do it under ultrasound guidance. You can use the popliteal access also, and rarely you use posterior tibial and dorsalis pedis approach also for below the knee interventions. When you access the posterior tibial and dorsalis pedis, which are arteries less than 3 millimeter, putting in a sheath should be avoided. You have specialized sheaths for doing peripheral interventions. When the aortic bifurcation is too sharp, you need sheath like Arrowflex, which is more flexible but gives less support. When the artery is hard calcified, then you need sheaths like Rabe or Balkins, which are less compliant but give more support. This is the Alcott torque device which Dr. George Joseph showed, which we need for 035 wires. And sometimes the pulses might not be felt, or it might be very weak, or you might need to puncture a very small artery. So for that you need a micropuncture set. Here the needle bore is 21 millimeter as against the 18 of the Seldinger's needle. And you also have 4 French and 5 French sheaths for smaller arteries. And sometimes instead of using guiding catheters, you can use shuttle sheaths, which comes in 30, 60 and 90 centimeter lengths depending on the length you need. You also need a radio opaque scale for making measurements and taking the proper size stents or balloons. The marker pigtail also serves the same purpose, and sometimes in peripheral intervention you need to retrieve or exteriorize wires, for which you need a gooseneck scare also. The interventions can be divided into aortoiliac interventions, femoropopliteal interventions, and below the knee interventions. Coming to aortoiliac interventions, indications are intermittent claudication with failed medical therapy, critical limb ischemia, prior to planned distal lower limb revascularization, preparation for IABP insertion, and flow limiting dissection following catheterization. The aortoiliac stenting is easier than bypass procedure-wise. Graft patency is at par with bypass results. And access, you can use either a retrograde common femoral approach or a contralateral antegrade common femoral approach. And sometimes in total occlusions, you need to work from both sides. You can even use a bilateral retrograde contrafemoral approach. Usually in aortoiliac, 035 wires are used. Stents, both balloon expandable and self-expanding, can be used. When you have to catch the ostium or when you are doing a aortoiliac bifurcation, then balloon expandable stents are used. Otherwise, self-expanding is good. Restenosis rate is as less as 10%. And clinical data, we have the Swedish trial, the Veterans Administration Cooperative Study, and Dutch iliac stent trial. All the three studies shows equivalent outcome for PTCA compared to CABG. Though the patency rates of grafts are slightly more, the mortality is a little high with bypass surgery, and hence endovascular interventions are preferred. Coming to femoropopliteal, this is the task classification for femoropopliteal lesions. The SFA is the most common site of peripheral arterial involvement and the leading cause of claudication. More than 50% of peripheral lesions are in the femoropopliteal segments. It is the most common location of disease is in the adductor canal, and the plaque can involve the entire 30 centimeter artery. Occlusions are 3 times more common than stenosis in the SFA. Trends towards significant calcification, disease tends to be mirrored in the contralateral limb. And the profunda femoral artery collaterals usually sustain limb, and progression to limb threat is usually 2 to 3% per year. This is the anatomy of the SFA, and you can see where the region where it enters the adductor canal is the commonest site of the femoropopliteal being included. And the SFA is the artery which has the most mechanical strain when with movements of the limbs. You can see the forces to which it is subjected: compression, torsion, flexion, and extraction. Based on the SFA motion, it has been divided into 4 zones: zone A, B, C, and D. The zone A and zone D are kink zones. Namely, the zone A is the common femoral artery, when you flex the thigh gets compressed, kinked, and the zone D is the popliteal region. When you flex your knee, it gets compressed. So these were initially the no stent zones in the SFA territory, but now with the newer stents, you can even stent the zone A and zone B. Of course, zone B is a compression zone, and zone C is a fixed zone which does not move. And you can see what happens to stents when deployed in the SFA. You can see multiple fractures in the stents. So one should avoid stenting in this place. And as I said, more than 50% of the time the SFA lesions are total occlusions, and hence it is difficult to cross through the lumen, and then hence you need to do a subintimal angioplasty. Here what you do is you pass a wire into the subintima, then create a loop, and then cross with the loop subintimally, and once you are outside the lesion, then you try to puncture the intima and re-enter the true lumen, and then perform an angioplasty. This is just showing how the technique, you can see a contralateral sheath in the first picture, and then a thermoglide wire or a spectrokinetic support catheter, then the wire being looped and then sent down across the lesion subintimally, and then you have to change the wire to a 014 sharper wire, and then redirect it with an angled catheter and come back into the true lumen, and then perform the angioplasty. Below knee intervention is fast growing. Previously it was contraindicated or not done. If you look at below the knee, you have 3 vessels: anterior tibial, posterior tibial, and peroneal. The aim, it is usually done for critical limb ischemia, and the aim is to create at least one artery with good flow from about to the foot. One vessel incidence is only 10%, 2 vessel is 20%, and 3 vessel is 70%. So most of the times it is involvement of all the 3 vessels. And this is showing how the anterior tibial is reconstructed with an atherectomy and then with a plain balloon without a stent. Unfortunately, like coronaries, the restenosis rate is very high in peripheral vascular disease. In the iliac segments, it is 10 to 20%. In the femoropopliteal segments, it is 20 to 60%. And in the tibioperoneal, it is as high as 50 to 70%. But however, we are overcoming this with the new recent advances in PTA. You have a cryoplasty, wherein the Boston Scientific has introduced a polar cath, where in addition to balloon angioplasty, you are also giving cold therapy. Liquid nitrous oxide is the balloon inflation media which cools the tissue to minus 10 degrees, and it is hypothesized that this cryotherapy causes plaque modification, reduction of elastic coil, and induction of apoptosis, thereby decreasing the incidence of restenosis. 2 multicentenary registry data are available for cryoplasty. As of now, it is useful, but it does not replace your regular PTA. You also have rotational atherectomy, the pathway PV atherectomy system by which you can do rotational atherectomy in peripheral arteries. You also have a directional atherectomy, the silver hawk catheter, which can be used in the femoropopliteal and below the knee segments and avoid stenting. You do have XMR laser catheter for total occlusions of the femoropopliteal segment, the turbo booster catheter. And you also have CTO catheters like the front runner and crosser. In front runner, you have a jaw which nibbles the atherosclerosis and then finds its path through the CTO. In crosser catheter, you use mechanical energy to enter the occluded segment. And then you are in subinterval, re-enter back into the true lumen, and you might need to abandon the procedure. So for that, they now have true lumen re-entry devices. So wherein what you do is you take the true lumen re-entry device into the false track in the subintima, and then with a needle you puncture the true septum and then come out in the true lumen, for which we have the Outback and the Pioneer catheter. The Outback catheter is 120 centimeter long. You need a O4 wire over which you track it with a 6 French sheath. It has a 22 gauge re-entry needle, and you have a distal L and T marker which guides you to enter into the true lumen. In the Pioneer catheter, you need two O14 wires with a 7 French sheath. It has a 25 gauge re-entry needle, and it is IUS guided. You also have drug-eluting stents. Initially, we had trials like Syracuse 1 and 2, wherein sirolimus eluting stents were compared with bare metal stents. With the Zilver PTX stent of Cook, that trial has been promising, and it showed definitely better primary and secondary patency rates. You also have small studies involving bioabsorbable stents in peripheral interventions. The Igaki Tamai stent has been studied in a small population of 26 patients. You also have cutting balloons for peripheral angioplasty. Boston Scientific has balloons with lengths of 1 and 2 centimeter and diameters of 5, 6, 7, and 8. Especially in patients who have osteal lesions or calcified lesions, cutting balloon helps. You also have covered stents. The Viaban is the FDA approved stent for using in SFA or popliteal arteries. It comes in diameters of 6 to 8 millimeters and lengths of 2.5, 5, 10 and 15 centimeters. But unfortunately, it has showed a little higher stent thrombosis rate. You also have the Aspire stent. Vibrant study is an ongoing study wherein Viaban is being compared with a bare metal stent. You also have balloon expandable covered stents, especially in CTOs and lesions which are fibrotic and calcified. There are chances of the vessel getting ruptured. So always you should have a backup of covered stents, just like for coronaries. You have the Joe stent from Abbott in 3 to 5 millimeter diameters, and for bigger diameters you have the iCast Atrium stent from 5 to 12 millimeters. Thus, all these above technologies will definitely help us to do more and more peripheral limb revascularization. And if you see the 2007 task, it has made even type C, as Dr. Samir Dani had mentioned, that even type C can be done by endovascular, leaving only type D for bypass surgeries. And if you see the trend nationally, the lower extremity bypass surgeries and major limb amputations are coming down, whereas endovascular interventions are growing. And I think with this, all this device, we can keep the legs of even octogenarians as healthy as this. Thank you.
Thank you. Any role of drug-eluting balloons?
Yeah, we also have, because of time constraint, I didn't add it. We have a PacoCath balloon, a drug-eluting balloon, which is definitely very useful, especially in femoropopliteal and below the knee segments where we don't want to stack. Drug-eluting balloon also has a role in management.
Actually, the puncturing of the distal vessels by when is a distal deformation after the total occlusion is good. When you inject the contrast from the above, we can directly enter the fluoro, we can puncture it.
Yeah.
And we can use we used once longer length, smaller size needle is not available. We use lumbar puncture needle.
Lumbar.
That will take usually 0.14 the wire, and
Wire,
we can puncture
right.
it and can do in that way also.